Hello gang, Tattooed Biker here with you, and tonight I've got several real reports and true stories of chilling encounters with dogmen or upright cryptid canine creatures, submitted by real viewers. A word of caution though, the following stories are as compelling as they are disturbing. But before we get started, if you enjoy real stories of unexplained phenomena and unexplained creatures, without any lazy, fake AI voice narration or scripting, then do me a favor. Hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and then grab your gear because it's time to ride to Dogman Country. All right, in this first email, a Bucks County, Pennsylvania witness, well, he describes his encounter with a 6-foot-tall, upright cryptid canine near his home. He lives in an area that's known for some strange phenomena.
Hey biker, back in 2020, I moved to Doylestown, Pennsylvania to be near my son and grandchildren. I found a small cabin-like apartment in Bucks County, out near a lot of farms and woods, and I signed my lease on August 6th of that year. On the evening of August 7th, 2020, my son and I were at my new place to move some stuff in. We were both standing at the rear of his truck in the driveway when we both turned around. Not because we heard something, but we just happened to do so. And that's when we noticed a black, odd-looking creature creeping around at the end of the driveway, trying to get past us in the direction of the farm across from my cabin. It quickly turned around and was gone fast. We both agreed that it didn't look anything like a dog or a coyote. We finished unloading that evening, and I was constantly asking him what he thought it was. He said he didn't know, but it was weird looking, and I wrote it down because, well, that's what I've always done. Some 7 months later, on March 1st, 2021, it was a cold and windy early morning, and I'd put the trash out hours before, and I was doing some work on the computer. That's when I heard a loud bang, and right away, I knew it was my trash can. So I put my jacket and shoes on, grabbed my flashlight, and it was a little after 3 a.m. in the morning. The reason I grabbed my flashlight is because it's very dark out front, and there's wildlife in the area because of the woods and the farmland. When walking on my driveway to the road, you can't see at all, unless it's a full moon. As I got down to my trash can, and I started pulling the can up from the ground, I hear a car horn blowing, and the sound of someone slamming on the brakes. As I look towards the stop sign, I see this black figure in the lights of the car, standing in the middle of the road. It then drops down to all fours and starts heading in my direction. I noticed the guy in the road. Within seconds, the creature had reached my driveway. It noticed my flashlight, and then it stood up on 2 legs, boxing its front paws and growling. It sounded horrible. It had yellow eyes and stood about 6 feet tall. It had black, spiked hair and drool dripping from its mouth. Suddenly, the car peels away and made a left turn towards my driveway. The creature dropped back down to all fours and was gone in the blink of an eye. The car stopped in front of me, and the guy yells out, "What the hell was that?" He then proceeded down my road. I was walking backwards, shaking nervously as I approached my front door. I got inside to find myself still upset and shaking my head. I stood at the door with the outside light on and waited for the car to return. After a few minutes, the car blew by my driveway and proceeded the original way he was headed when he had encountered the creature. Now this thing looked like something on steroids from a horror movie. I know what I saw. I don't drink or do any drugs. I take care of my wife, who suffered a massive heart attack and has dementia. I haven't seen the creature since then. When I sit outside at night now, I'm packed with 2 guns. I researched this and found nothing, but I continue looking in case something ever pops up. I hope I never see this thing again. I still think about it when I go outside at night to just sit and relax. I've noticed that you have a few stories like mine, and, well, I'm interested in knowing all I can about it. You might find this sounding crazy, but My background is that I worked for police and fire department in Baltimore County, Sparrows Point Police, high-tech security, private bodyguard, bank security, Baltimore Blast Security, and Pinkerton Security. Thanks for reading. Signed, Darren.
Now, personally, I believe this account because I've received similar reports from around the same area and the same time period, like this one from Doylestown, Pennsylvania.
Dear Biker, my boyfriend at the time and I, we were driving in Doylestown, Pennsylvania in 2016 when we saw an upright, arched-back dog, or a wolf-like creature, run across the road. It had long arms but was on 2 feet, and it jumped up with both feet and legs at the same time like sort of a hop, high onto the wall on the other side of the road, and then jumped straight up and out into the woods beyond the wall. We both saw this, and we couldn't figure out what it could be. It was dark out, so we couldn't see where it went, and we didn't really want to. It was a creature that neither of us had ever seen or knew to even exist. Signed, Carrie Ann.
Now, this email and the report in general was pretty brief, so I replied back to Carrie Ann, and I received the following information.
Thanks for responding. I never once questioned what I saw. My ex-boyfriend, whom I'm still good friends with, can verify the experience. When I decided to Google Wolfman or Dogman creature to see if it was possible that someone else may have seen something similar, I found a few sites, including your channel. It's validating to see others in Pennsylvania having seen similar things. I never minded telling people what I saw that night. I'm sure that some of them thought I was a little crazy, but I don't care. I know what I saw. It was seen on the bridge that is now being restored or under construction, right next to a restaurant. The creature ran from left to right with incredible speed, and it jumped like a kangaroo, straight up with its 2 legs, paused briefly, and then jumped into a wooded area like it was a monkey that could swing from whatever it landed on. Like I said, it was dark, and I couldn't see where it landed. If you have any more questions, you can email me or call. I've included my number. Thanks. Signed, Carrie Ann.
Well, I called Carrie Ann back the very next day with a few more detail-oriented questions about the experience. She said that the incident occurred in mid-June of 2016 at approximately 1 a.m. She and her boyfriend were on their way home, driving north on Old Easton Road in Doylestown, Pennsylvania, there in Bucks County. The creature crossed in front of them on the bridge at the crossing at Pine Run at approximately 50 to 60 feet away. They got a very good look at the beast, which was lit up by their headlights. She described it as around 4.5 to 5 feet tall, with extremely muscular, dog-like legs and human-like feet. She said the body was humanoid in shape, though there was a distinct arch to its back. The arms were very long, reaching down near mid-leg and muscular, with very prominent human-like hands. She said the head was canine and looked like that of a wolf, with a dark, heavy mane that extended down its back. When it looked at the couple, it showed some eye shine, but there wasn't any eye color that she could discern. It also had a tail and was covered in dark grayish fur. Now I think that this might have been a juvenile, since the height is significantly shorter than that of most other sightings. In our next email, a mother describes her young son's scary cryptid canine encounter at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina.
Hello, Tattooed Biker. My ex-boyfriend was stationed at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, and after he and I split up, I stayed in the coastal Carolina region for a few years until the recession hit the area hard back in 2008. That's when I packed up and moved back west to where my family was originally from. I loved it there. My son and my younger daughter still live there. I can't go into fine details because, it's not my story, but I think my then 10-year-old son saw a dogman in the woods there at Camp Lejeune while he and his little buddies were out playing one evening. He was so freaking terrified that I had to have our pastor come over at 11 p.m. at night just to talk to him and try and comfort him. He kept talking about a giant black dog that was stalking him, going from tree to tree, and it was standing on two legs, leaning against a tree just to stare at him. Now, he had pet dogs, big hound dogs, so I couldn't understand why he was so scared. I asked if the dog had tried to bite him or had chased him, and he just said no. So at the time, I had no explanation for why he was so upset. After hearing about Dogman these last few years, I began to wonder if that's what he saw. So I asked him, and he's nearly 30 years old now. He says he doesn't know what I'm talking about, which I find strange because at the time it was so traumatic for him. Whatever it was that he saw, he stayed up all night crying for like a week afterwards. I've since listened to a couple of stories from other Marines who claim that they have seen them at Camp Lejeune too. So now, I wonder. Signed, Deandra.
Now, next up, I, through a mutual writing buddy, came in contact with a gentleman whom I'll call Joe here. He'd been told about my channel and he wanted to relate an experience that had happened to him when he had an encounter with an upright cryptid canine when he was just 15 years old while growing up in Delta County in west central Colorado. He had initially even resisted talking about the incident until he heard of recent upright cryptid canine encounters shared by friends and associates around his current residence in Fayetteville, Arkansas. Now, I've been keenly aware of the upright cryptid canine activity throughout the Ozarks in recent years. These cryptid canines or dogman sightings and encounters have become a lot more common throughout Alabama, Arkansas, and Mississippi, according to the witnesses who've sent reports into the channel. I had passed along my phone number, and he called me directly to tell me about his experience and giving me permission to share his story. And I took detailed notes during our call.
Joe stated that when he was a teen, he and his friends would hang out around the Gunnison River not far from its confluence with the Unexplained River near his hometown of Delta, Colorado. One late night in the mid-1990s, at approximately 12:30 a.m., Joe had arranged to meet a friend at their preferred spot along the river. They had a routine of exploring an old abandoned factory that still had working lights around it. These lights would illuminate the river and the shoreline. The river at this particular location was fairly shallow during the summer and could easily be crossed. While waiting for his friend, Joe decided to just kill some time. There was an auto parts lot junkyard near the location that interested Joe. He'd always been fascinated with automobiles and is currently an auto mechanic. He knew the man who owned the lot, which was guarded by a German Shepherd who was very friendly with Joe. Many times, the dog would wander down to the river just to greet and play with Joe.
As Joe began to make his way toward the lot, he had to pass a huge downed tree that lay along the river shore. The end of the downed tree had a large bundle of exposed roots and debris from the river. As he walked by the tree, he noticed a pair of long ears visible from the other side of the top. Thinking that it was the German Shepherd coming to greet him, he started calling out to it. In fact, he tossed a few pebbles at it just to get its attention. And then, suddenly, an unimaginable creature stood up. The light from the abandoned factory gave Joe an unobstructed view of this beast. He was witnessing a 7 to 8 foot tall humanoid with the head of a large wolf. The canine teeth were clearly visible, and its orange-yellow eyes looked directly at him. Joe said the eyes looked like distant lights coming from a tunnel. He was truly shocked and terrified from the sight.
At that moment, Joe let out a scream, and the beast reacted by grabbing the exposed roots and leaping on top of the downed tree. Joe's description was that of a sparsely haired, bipedal canine with a wide muscular chest and human-like arms, ending in human-like hands with long fingers and talons. The waist and hips were narrow, with muscular, hocked legs, extending down to long human-like feet. The beast was standing on the balls of its feet. Joe instinctively ran toward the river and quickly waded across it to a chain-link fence. As Joe looked back, the creature was down on all fours, watching him from the far shore of the river. The beast was watching Joe, but then directed its attention upriver. Then it suddenly took off running on all fours, upriver, at what Joe described as incredible speed.
Later, he was told by the man who owned the auto parts lot that he should never walk near the river at night. His comments were, "There are many things out there that we can't comprehend." He was also told by a shaman and an elder of his family's tribe that Joe encountered a spirit of the forest since it didn't attack him. Now, when I talked to Joe, his voice was noticeably shaky as he recounted his experience. This encounter has affected him throughout his life. Okay, well, to be honest, that was going to be the last report on the video. A nice and tidy Dogman-centered video, but this report came in at the last moment while I was editing. And even though it isn't Dogman or cryptid canine related, it's such a fascinating story I just couldn't sit on it. And I had to include it because, well, you see, a group of girlfriends are at a club together, and as the witness was watching, her friend suddenly shapeshifted into a 7-foot-tall reptilian being. Her dance partner also watched the terrifying transformation. She writes,
"Dear Tattooed, I've reached a point where I can't keep it to myself and I need someplace just to get it off my chest so I can move on. I was part of a trio of best friends, and we would hang out socially on the regular. One of our favorite things to do was to go to girls' night at one of the local clubs. We always started at one of our least favorite clubs, but it had one of those inexpensive fishbowl drinks, so we typically would begin our evening there. This is where it happened. We had arrived, and we were about 30 to 45 minutes into conversation and drinks, and then we decided to hit the dance floor. A group of 3 guys were seated near the dance floor and joined us once we started dancing. I was paired up with the youngest looking one. He looked to be about 5 or so years younger than myself, but we were having a great time dancing. We danced and merged back together with the entire group forming a circle. Directly across from my dance partner and myself was my friend. She was laughing and smiling, just dancing and enjoying herself. And then, boom, it was like a hologram or a shifting picture, like tuning an image. She suddenly stood well over our heads, and the guy I was dancing with was about 5'11" or so, and she had a clear head and shoulders over him. Now this is the part that I have the hardest time saying, without sounding ridiculous myself for not having an answer. Please, I have such a hard time saying it, even to myself, but she was a reptile. Like a standing, scale-covered, muscular, human-like creature with a dinosaur human-shaped head. My dance partner and I both froze. I felt stuck staring and trying to will myself to look away. I turned to look at him, and all the color had drained from his face. I felt so bad for the fear that I saw in him. Without a single word to each other, we both stepped backwards, turned, and fled outside. He kept walking and completely left the club. He didn't say a word. He just walked off, left his friends there, and was gone. I went back inside because I thought, well, it had to be the lighting. Shadows or something practical. After all, I knew this person. We were friends. Best friends at the time. So I'm clearly the one that's crazy, and I needed to understand what had just happened. I sat at a table near the dance floor and watched the whole room. The lighting, effects, shadows, my friends dancing, and I just told myself that it had to be an optical illusion. A terrifying one, but it couldn't have been real. I know this person, and I'm not prone to fantasy, so I must have been the one to have had a vision, scrambled enough for my brain to fill in the wrong information. It unsettled me so much that I decided to not continue the evening out. I said goodbye to the other friend who was with us, and I went home. As soon as I got there, I searched the internet for anyone who had experienced anything remotely similar, and I couldn't find anything. At that point, I was still trying to convince myself that it was just a room, the lights or the strobe effect that had turned my best friend into a 7-foot-tall reptile person. I avoided them all for the next month. The next time I saw them, though, I thought that she would find it pretty amusing that I ghosted everyone because she was a shapeshifter. She didn't find it amusing and seemed really worried about it, asking me what she looked like. I mean, fair enough. I thought if my lunatic friend said the same thing to me, I would have questions too. I turned it into a joke and I tried to move the conversation away from it. But sometimes I get reminded and I can see it again in my mind, and I'm still as frightened and confused about it as I was then. We all grew apart soon after that, but there, I said it now. Maybe just getting it out of my head will make the memory go away. Thanks for taking the time to read this, biker. Signed, Trisha.
And there it is. All the true cryptid encounter stories and reports that I have for you this evening. So, what'd you think about these? As always, I'm anxious to read your thoughts and theories down in the comments below, but please keep it respectful to the witnesses. And if you have an unexplained encounter or a bizarre experience that you want to share, just send it to the email address in the description, and well, your story may just wind up in a future video. Anyways, thanks so much for taking this strange ride with me this evening. I really appreciate you. And until next time, stay curious, stay vigilant, stay safe, and I'll be seeing you on down the road a ways. Biker out.